Every year, 50 million travelers pass through West Virginia on their way to somewhere else. Interstate highways curve through its valleys like rivers of restless movement, carrying people toward distant destinations. Yet something remarkable happens to those who stop. They discover a land that defies every assumption. Here, mountains older than the Atlantic Ocean rise from ancient seabeds. Rivers flow north against logic, carving gorges so deep that ecosystems exist in vertical layers. Arctic plants grow beside southern species in biological impossibilities that shouldn't exist. For decades, West Virginia remained America's overlooked treasure, while crowds flocked to Yellowstone and Yosemite, while Colorado and Utah became synonymous with adventure. These older mountains kept their secrets. The Appalachians don't boast or beckon. They simply wait, holding stories that predate the Rockies by 200 million years. But something has shifted. Adventure seekers started whispering about a bridge where you could legally base jump. Rock climbers discovered sandstone cliffs that rival anywhere on Earth. Scientists found ecosystems that exist nowhere else on the continent. And in 2020, when America designated its newest national park, the secret finally began to escape. This is West Virginia, not as you've imagined it, but as it truly exists, a place where the mountains hold mysteries older than life itself, and every winding road leads deeper into America's most beautiful secret. But to understand these mountains, to truly comprehend their significance, we must travel back before memory, before history, before life itself learned to climb. These mountains were here before eyes evolved to see them, before bones existed to climb them, before leaves grew to carpet their slopes. The Appalachians began their rise 480 million years ago, when the only life on Earth floated in ancient seas. Geologists call them the oldest mountains on the planet's surface. Once they towered higher than today's Himalayas, their peaks scraping the ceiling of the world at 30,000 feet. But time works differently here. For 300 million years, rain and wind have been sculpting, softening, creating something unique. These aren't just old mountains. They're mountains that have learned patience. What researchers discovered changes everything about how we see these hills. The Appalachians aren't a single mountain range. They're the eroded roots of at least 3 different ranges, stacked on top of each other through successive collisions of continents. Each ridge you see represents an ancient catastrophe, a slow-motion crushing that took millions of years. In West Virginia, you can touch rocks that formed when North America was part of Africa. You can stand on ocean floors lifted 4,000 feet into the sky. Fossil hunters regularly find seashells on mountaintops, proof that these peaks were once submarine valleys. But here's what transforms understanding into awe. These mountains shaped human civilization more than any other range in North America. They funneled migration patterns, created the biodiversity that fed nations, and held coal seams that powered the Industrial Revolution. The Appalachians didn't just witness history, they wrote it. These ancient foundations support more than rock and soil. Carved through their very heart runs a river that shouldn't exist, flowing through a gorge that defies every geological expectation. They call it the New River, which might be geology's greatest naming irony. Scientists have dated this waterway at over 350 million years old, making it the second oldest river on Earth. Only the Nile runs deeper through time. For decades, this canyon kept its magnificence hidden. The walls drop 1,400 feet straight down, creating a chasm so deep it generates its own weather patterns. Clouds form inside the gorge, while sunshine bathes the rim. Temperature differences between top and bottom can exceed 20 degrees. It's not just a landscape, it's multiple worlds stacked vertically. When Bridge Day arrives each October, something extraordinary happens. For one day only, the new River Gorge Bridge becomes the only structure in the Western Hemisphere where base jumping is legal. 800 feet of freefall, 6 seconds of pure gravity before the parachute deploys. Jumpers from 40 countries arrive to leap into America's newest national park. But the bridge only hints at what lies below. The gorge holds over 1,500 established rock climbing routes on bulletproof sandstone, rapids that range from peaceful floats to Class 5 monsters that have humbled Olympic kayakers, 70 miles of canyon that ecologists call the most diverse ecosystem in Appalachia. In 2020, when Congress designated this our 63rd national park, they weren't just protecting scenery, they were preserving a place where ancient geology meets modern adventure, where a river older than dinosaurs still carves fresh stories every spring flood. The river carved through living rock, but humans carved something else from these mountains. Entire communities, built and abandoned so quickly that they left perfect fossils of American ambition. Thurmond sits frozen in time, a perfectly preserved skeleton of America's coal boom. Today, 5 people live here. In 1910, it was the epicenter of Appalachian wealth, where more money moved through one bank than anywhere else in the state. The transformation happened almost overnight. 15,000 people vanished in less than a decade, not from disaster or disease, but from the simple cruelty of economic change. When diesel trains replaced steam engines, when coal markets shifted, entire communities evaporated like morning mist. Archaeologists studying these sites discovered something remarkable. Nature doesn't just reclaim these places, it transforms them into something entirely new. In Thurmond's abandoned buildings, they found ecosystems that exist nowhere else. Rare bats roost in old hotels. Endangered plants grow in former saloons. The town has become a vertical forest, with different species colonizing each floor of empty structures. The Thurmond depot stands as witness to both eras. Trains still rumble through, though they no longer stop. Amtrak passengers press against windows, glimpsing this ghost town for exactly 17 seconds before the forest swallows them again. Across West Virginia, dozens of these communities dot the landscape. Muttlberg's coal tipple rises like an industrial cathedral. Kaymore's mine entrance yawns black against the cliff face. Each site tells the same story differently. Boom, bust, silence. Then something unexpected. Beauty. These ruins have become pilgrimage sites for photographers, historians, and anyone seeking to understand how quickly civilization can disappear and how patiently the mountains wait to take everything back. If ghost towns show how mountains reclaim the horizontal world, one particular formation demonstrates their absolute mastery of the vertical. A blade of stone so sharp that eagles nest on its edges. Rising 900 feet from the valley floor, Seneca Rocks stands like a granite knife, thrust through the Earth's crust. This blade of Tuscarora quartzite is so sharp at its summit that climbers straddle it like a horse, one leg hanging over each side of a 1,000-foot drop. The formation shouldn't exist. Geologists studying the rocks discovered they're tilted at impossible angles, thrust skyward 250 million years ago when continents collided. What remains is the resistant core of an ancient mountain. Everything softer worn away, leaving only this defiant finger pointing at heaven. For the Seneca people, these rocks served as the ultimate proving ground. Young warriors climbed the faces without ropes, without protection, carrying eagle feathers to place at the summit. Archaeological evidence shows this tradition continued for over 800 years. The rocks weren't just a challenge, they were a conversation with the divine. Today, climbers call Seneca Rocks the best traditional climbing east of the Mississippi. No bolts, no fixed protection, just you, the rock, and whatever gear you can place in ancient cracks. Over 375 different routes spider up the faces, ranging from beginner-friendly to desperate endeavors that humble world-class athletes. But here's what photographers discovered. Twice each year, during spring and autumn equinox, the sunrise aligns perfectly with the ridge. For exactly 7 minutes, the rocks transform into a blade of pure light, casting a shadow that reaches 3 miles across the valley. The Seneca people knew this. They built their ceremonies around it. Some knowledge transcends time. These vertical monuments reach towards sky, but deep in West Virginia's highlands, an even stranger world exists. A place where the border between north and south, between possible and impossible, completely dissolves. At 4,000 feet elevation, something impossible happens. The Canadian wilderness appears in West Virginia. Not metaphorically, but literally. The Cranberry Wilderness preserves an Ice Age ecosystem that should exist 1,000 miles north, in the boreal forests of Quebec. Climate scientists drilling core samples made an astounding discovery. This bog holds a continuous record of the last 15,000 years. Pollen grains, perfectly preserved in acidic peat, tell the story of how these mountains became a refuge. When glaciers pushed south, Arctic plants fled here. When ice retreated, they stayed, trapped in high-altitude pockets where cold air pools and summer never quite arrives. The botanical inventory reads like fantasy. Carnivorous plants digest insects in acids strong enough to dissolve steel. Cranberries grow wild in sphagnum moss that's building soil at the rate of 1 inch per century. Trees that normally tower 100 feet stay stunted at 6 feet, bonsaied by altitude and wind. Wildlife biologists studying the area documented species combinations that exist nowhere else. Southern flying squirrels share trees with northern saw-whet owls. Black bears grow thicker fur than their lowland cousins, adapting to temperatures that plummet below expectations. One researcher described it as finding Alaska hidden in Appalachia. The Cranberry Wilderness covers 47,000 acres, with no roads, no structures, no human infrastructure, except ancient trails. Visitors who venture here report an otherworldly experience. The spongy ground swallows footsteps, fog materializes from nowhere, compass needles spin confused by iron deposits. It's beautiful, yes, but also profoundly disorienting, like stepping through time. This biological time capsule preserves the impossible, but just miles away, water itself turns black as midnight, creating one of West Virginia's most photographed mysteries. Every waterfall photographer who arrives at Blackwater Falls experiences the same confusion. Their cameras can't properly expose the scene. The water runs so dark it absorbs light like liquid midnight, yet crashes white as snow against ancient rocks. The mystery has a beautiful explanation. Upstream, hemlocks and red spruces have been dying and decomposing for millennia. Their tannins, the same compounds that color tea and wine, concentrate in the water at levels scientists call unprecedented. The river doesn't just look black, it's been permanently dyed by an entire forest history. The falls plunge 57 feet over Blackwater Canyon's rim, but numbers fail to capture the spectacle. 5 stories of ebony water detonating into mist that rises like smoke. In winter, something even more extraordinary occurs. The spray freezes mid-air, building ice formations that climb back up the cliff face, sometimes reaching the very lip they fell from. Local historians discovered that the water wasn't always this dark. In the 1880s, logging operations clear-cut the entire watershed. The river ran clear for exactly 1 generation. Then the forest returned. The hemlocks and spruces reclaimed their territory, and the water gradually darkened again. By 1920, old-timers were calling it a completely different river. Below the falls, Blackwater Canyon stretches 8 miles, often called the Grand Canyon of the East. The comparison falls short. This isn't red rock and desert air, it's black water and green infinity. A temperate rainforest, perched impossibly in the mountains. Biologists have catalogued over 170 species of birds here, many following the canyon, like a highway through hostile altitude. Water holds memories in its darkness, but some secrets in these mountains were intentionally buried, hidden beneath luxury and deliberate deception. For 30 years, every guest at America's most elegant resort slept above a nuclear bunker designed to house the entire United States Congress. They played golf over blast doors. They dined above decontamination chambers. The Greenbrier kept the coldest of Cold War secrets beneath its manicured surface. Declassified documents reveal the audacious scale. Project Greek Island, as the Pentagon coded it, required excavating a cavity larger than 2 football fields beneath an active luxury resort. Construction crews worked at night, telling locals they were building a conference center. In reality, they were creating America's doomsday backup plan. The bunker contained 153 rooms across 2 levels, buried 720 feet into the hillside behind 18-ton blast doors, dormitories for 1,100 people, a television studio for broadcasting to whatever remained of America, a 90-day supply of food, though planners privately doubted anyone would emerge into a world worth inheriting. Every detail spoke to impossible scenarios. The medical facility included 12 hospital beds and a complete operating room. Though radiation exposure would likely make surgery pointless, communications equipment could reach submarines beneath the Arctic ice, assuming submarines still existed. An incinerator could dispose of bodies, a detail no tourist brochure mentioned. Washington Post exposed the secret in 1992. Within 24 hours, the government abandoned a facility that cost over $100 million in today's currency. Now it's a tourist attraction, though guides report unsettling experiences. Cold spots in climate-controlled rooms, radio equipment that occasionally powers on by itself, as if the mountain itself absorbed 3 decades of apocalyptic anxiety and occasionally remembers. Beneath the earth, humans built for catastrophe. But above ground, nature created its own alien world, a landscape so strange that military forces used it to practice for foreign wars. At 4,000 feet, the mountain simply gives up trying to be a mountain. Dolly Sods wilderness sprawls across 17,000 acres of plateau that resembles Arctic tundra more than Appalachian forest. Trees grow sideways, sculpted by winds that average 50 miles per hour. Rocks arranged in polygons by freeze-thaw cycles create patterns that NASA uses to study Martian geology. During World War II, the military chose this landscape for a disturbing reason. It looked exactly like the European battlefields American soldiers would face. From 1943 to 1944, bombers dropped live ordnance here practicing for D-Day. Artillery units shelled the plateau. Mortar teams turned meadows into moonscapes. Even today, signs warn hikers about unexploded shells. Since 1997, cleanup crews have removed over 27,000 pounds of live ammunition. But something unexpected happened to the bomb craters. They filled with water, became homes for rare salamanders, transformed into ecosystems that exist nowhere else. Violence became inadvertent creation. Botanists studying Dolly Sods discovered it preserves pre-Columbian Appalachia. The plant communities here haven't changed in 10,000 years. Carnivorous sundews trap insects in sticky diamonds of death. Reindeer moss, the actual Arctic species, carpets the ground. In June, azaleas bloom in psychedelic explosions that seem impossible at this altitude. Weather here changes faster than anywhere else in the east. Survivors of unexpected storms describe temperature drops of 40 degrees in minutes. Fog so thick that hikers lose trails 3 feet away. Lightning that strikes horizontally across the plateau. One rescue team leader called it the most dangerous, beautiful place in America. These highlands challenge every expectation, every assumption about what these ancient mountains contain. But the greatest surprise rises from the valley floors, where West Virginia reaches its highest point. The summit of Spruce Knob sits at 4,863 feet, the highest point in West Virginia. But elevation alone doesn't explain why this mountain matters. This is where extremes converge: the clearest air in the eastern United States, the darkest skies east of the Mississippi, the last stand of red spruce forests that once covered millions of acres. From the stone observation tower built by the Civilian Conservation Corps, visibility extends into 5 states on clear days. But clear is relative here. The summit spends 200 days per year wrapped in clouds. When they part, the revelation is absolute. Ridge after ridge extending to the curve of the earth, a frozen ocean of ancient stone. Astronomers have measured the darkness here at 21.6 on the Bortle scale, approaching theoretical maximum darkness. The nearest significant light pollution lies 150 miles away. On moonless nights, the Milky Way casts shadows. Meteors appear at the periphery of vision, like memories of light. The International Dark Sky Association calls it one of the last true dark refuges in the eastern United States. The red spruces here survived the last ice age, then survived something worse, the industrial logging that stripped 99.9% of their range. These survivors grow in flags, every branch pointing east, shaped by prevailing winds that exceed 100 miles per hour in winter. Trees that should tower 100 feet stay cramped at 20 feet, but their root systems extend deeper than their cousins in valleys, anchoring against the perpetual assault. Scientists maintain monitoring stations here that track everything from cosmic rays to acid rain. The data collected has revealed troubling patterns. The spruce forest is migrating upslope at 3 feet per year, chasing cooler temperatures that soon won't exist. Within 50 years, researchers predict there will be nowhere higher for them to go. From West Virginia's highest point, we descend to where rivers converge and history pivots. A town that proves sometimes the most significant places occupy the smallest spaces. Geography rarely achieves such perfect drama. The Potomac and Shenandoah rivers collide here between cliffs that mark the borders of 3 states. West Virginia, Maryland, and Virginia meet at a point Thomas Jefferson called the most stupendous scene in nature, worth crossing the Atlantic to witness. But Harpers Ferry holds significance beyond scenery. In 1859, John Brown's raid on the Federal Armory here ignited the Civil War's fuse. The town changed hands 14 times during that conflict. Historians call it the place where American history pivoted, where the moral reckoning over slavery became inevitable violence. Today, different pilgrimages converge here. The Appalachian Trail crosses the Potomac on a railroad bridge converted to footpath. Through hikers, having walked from Georgia or Maine, stop here to rest, resupply, and realize they're exactly halfway through their 2,190-mile journey. The psychological center of America's longest trail. The cliffs called Maryland Heights reveal 500 million years of geological history in vertical cross-section. Each rock layer tells of different catastrophes, different worlds. Sandstone from ancient beaches, shale from primordial seafloors, granite from the planet's molten youth, a library of stone that geologists travel internationally to read. After dark, Harpers Ferry transforms. Ghost tours cite overwhelming evidence. Electromagnetic anomalies that fry equipment, temperature variations that lack explanation, photographic captures that defy dismissal. Whether you believe in spirits or not, something here unsettles. Maybe it's the weight of accumulated history. Maybe it's the river's endless conversation. Maybe some places simply hold too much significance for simple explanations. Three states meet. 2 rivers merge. Countless stories converge in this single point, reminding us that West Virginia's true magnitude can't be measured in acres or altitudes. The mountains remember everything, every ocean that covered them, every creature that climbed them, every storm that tried to erase them. West Virginia's landscape holds 480 million years of patience, of transformation so slow that humans can barely comprehend it. Those 50 million travelers who pass through each year, racing toward distant destinations, don't know what they're missing, but perhaps that's changing. The designation of the new River Gorge as America's newest national park sent a signal. The secret is dissolving, like morning mist. These aren't just mountains. They're the roots of ancient giants, the foundation upon which a continent built itself. In their valleys, America tested its conscience. In their darkness, it hid its greatest fears. In their forests, nature performs experiments that shouldn't be possible. West Virginia waits with the patience of geological time. It doesn't need your validation or your visits. These mountains were here before humans dreamed them, and they'll be here long after we forget them. But for those who stop, who venture off the interstates into the winding roads that climb toward clouds, a transformation awaits. This state doesn't need words. It speaks in black waterfalls and vertical forests, in ghost towns and dark skies, in rivers older than life and mountains that remember when the world was young. West Virginia keeps its secrets not through hiding, but through honesty so overwhelming that most people simply drive past, unable to process the invitation these ancient mountains extend. The mountains are calling. They've been calling for 480 million years. They can wait a little longer.